but now we'll start getting into textures. Like how do you actually give your materials? How do you actually give materials to your object? Okay, so what about your model there? And without much ado, I'm just loading up my Blender. So I'll start sharing my screen right now. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen. All right. Okay. Good. Um. Okay. So, Masruchi, you want to say something?
No, I wanted to
Okay.
react.
Oh, all right. All right. Okay, that's good enough. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, like I said, we'll be talking about texturing today. So, see, you can see my screen, right? Now, if you open up Blender and you're doing anything in Blender, by default, it will likely look something like this gray looking color, right? But if you want to actually have some colors on your material, even if you go into material viewport, it will still be like white, plain white, and nothing on. It's not interesting. Okay, so this was our jet engine exercise. But what if you want to add like actual um actual materials to this? Like something, maybe you want to write your name on it. You want to, I don't know, you want to maybe Boeing 747, write something on like that on it or something. How will you accomplish that? And that's what we'll be doing today, talking about materials. Okay, so for that I'll be using our bottle model. I don't know if I still have it here. Okay, if not, I'll just use someone's bottle model at random. I don't know, let's say okay, let me just use Absalam's bottle. Okay. Oh, I like this bottle. Okay, so this is Abdusalam's bottle, right? This is your assignment. So we'll be using your model. We'll be texturing your model to get into the knowledge of texturing and modeling. Okay. So now, did we spoke about solidify modifier in the last class? Did we not? Please, any responses?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good. Yes. Okay. All right. So there are some, when you start talking about texturing and materials in Blender, it's sometimes it might be quite tricky because some materials will behave certain way. You have to do some slight manipulations to make them behave much better. For one, I know something like glass. If you're making a material like glass or something transparent, um, it might look a little bit not as what you intended unless you did it in a certain way. So there are all the different tricks and different scopes of materials and texture because it's like a whole aspect of Blender on its own. All right. So let's get into it now. Now, if you want to texture anything in Blender, okay, you will likely want to come into this shading layout. But this, like I said, it's just a layout. It doesn't matter. You can actually do that from here. Just come into the material properties here. But for for to make you more familiar with the node editor, I'll be I'll be going into the shading tab. Okay. Now what I clicked was just this up part here. Shading is it will be here. It will be on your Blender by default. You have Blender 2.8 and above, of course. Okay, so let me turn on the screencast key so you can see what I'm pressing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. I believe you can see the screencast keys now. Okay, so now by default there is no material on this, and that's why Blender is just recognizing everything as white. Okay, so because we are in a material viewport shading, so we can see all the materials that are on this object. So by default there are no materials on, so that's why Blender is shading it as white. That's why everything is looking white. But if you want to add a material, you can come when you are in this layout. You can just click on Add New, or if not, if you are in the normal the default layout, that's default layout here. So you can just come down here, the second to the last icon here. Just click on it. That's the materials icon, and you see that there's no material. So that's why this place seems quite blank. Okay. So if you want to add a material, what you do is you click on the object that you want to add the material to. Okay, make sure that's the one that is selected, and then you can click on new. Okay, so by it will not look as if anything is happening because we are still in solid view. Okay, so let's go into the material view to display the materials that are on it. Okay, so now let me click this drop down, the preview, so that we can see the material work. This is a preview to show you the materials that you opened up. Okay. Okay, so give me a second. Okay, so if you want to add a material, let's say you want to make this bottle blue, for example, what you want to do is come to the base color here, and then you change it to blue, whatever. So what I just did, it will bring up a color palette here, and you can just play around, change to any, click on any color that you want, and then to just apply that color. Okay. Please bear in mind that if you're in solid view, you will not see any change. Okay, here you not see any change here. Although it has been actually applied, but you won't see any change here. But if you come to material view, make sure you have your material shading, or you can tap Z and then go to solid view. You go to materials view to show the material view. Let me come on screen kit here too. Okay, it's not. Okay, so let's go to. Okay, good. All right, so yeah, so if you want to view the materials that are on it in solid view, then just tap Z, then come down to the material preview, and then you have the materials that are on it. Okay, so that's what it. But first of all, you need to know what material you want to add to something, and you need to know how you want the object to look. Say for example, you want to this is a bottle. Okay, by default this is not how a swan bottle looks like. Okay, so it's kind of transparent, and it's kind of let me bring up the reference that I did that I'm working with. Okay, so this is how a swan bottle looks like. Okay, it looks like this. But what we have here is just like a blue weird looking thing. Okay, it looks like a block. All right, so how do we achieve that? Now there are different types of shaders in Blender. So what we'll be using is we're using shaders. Okay, there are different types of shaders in Blender. So let me go back into the shading editor so you see what I mean. So by default, when you click on new, let me close this. By default, there's no material now. So when you want to add a material, you click on new, right? By default, it will add a principled shader for you. So what we have is a principled shader. Look here, it's a principled shader, and you see that it's connected to the output material. The output material is like this is the output. Okay, so whatever material you be on this left side, and whatever the output will be, and whatever it will always connect to this output to reflect on your object. Okay, so now a principled BSDF or principled shader, principled BSDF is like the default shader that Blender will add. And the reason why Blender adds this default shader is because with just this principled BSDF, you can create almost any material you want. You can create wood, you can create metal, you can create I don't know, you can create anything. Your imagination is your limit. So I'll focus a lot on the BSDF principled BSDF, because with that you'll be able to do almost anything. We won't be able to cover everything about materials, but with just a few things we cover, you'll be able to create virtually any type of material. Okay. So now talking about the principles BSDF. Okay. Now principle BSDF is divided into a lot of you see a lot of options here. They are like I don't know, they have some weird names, so service IOR like that. I'll be explaining everything now. Okay. So let's start with the very top here. So ignore this GCC and this other one for now. Let me talk to you about that. So now, if you want to talk about the base color, that's the major color of this thing. That's where you are adjusting this. Okay. I see that there's a square here. There's a white square. If you click on the square to bring up the color palette, where you can choose whichever color you want. Okay. So that's you adjusting the base color, the major color of any object. Okay. So you can choose whichever color you want. You can increase the saturation. That's the darkness. So you can increase that. Can just you can play around with this for any color that you want. Okay, that's just all the major thing about the base color. Okay, now I won't talk about this soft surface yet, but I'll explain it later. I won't talk about it now. Subsurface color is let me just I'll ignore these first three node points for now. Okay, so okay, let me know. Basically, what they do is like how do I explain this? If you have like the skin of a human being, right? The skin of a human being. If you notice, our skin is not it's not
Yes.
opaque. It's not
Yeah,
fully
it's
opaque
all.
in such a sense. Like when something is kind of translucent, not really translucent as such, but I think yeah, translucent is more of
I know
how
it.
to describe it. That's what subsurface color is all about. So if you
I want to
if you
eat
want this
the
this bottle now to be somewhat like translucent, not transparent but translucent in such a way that light kinds of pass through it but not fully, not in a strong form. That's when you mess with these
not
subsurface
be funding.
colors. Okay, so if you like, for example, if you're modeling
I'm
the human
hungry.
skin, the subsurface color that you want to use will be red because our blood is red. So if you have the flashlight, the strong flashlight, for example, let me use my phone here. You have a strong flashlight and you flash through your hand. I don't know if you can see properly, but you see like it's kind of red, okay? And that's because my blood is red. All right, so that's it. So if you're modeling a human being, for example, you want to make this subsurface color to be somewhat reddish, and then by default it will not show up, of course, because you have not increased the how strong. So all these settings are just to tweak it to your desire. Okay, so I've created the subsurface color, right, to be red, for example. Let's say this was a human being, for example, and I can use this other tab, and what I just do was I just click in it and drag to increase or to reduce. Okay, so I can drag to increase or to reduce. Okay, I notice that as I'm doing that, it's looking as if it's kind of not like the color is changing per se, but it's looking as if it's the inside color is kind of changing. It's kind of becoming more translucent, if you notice. So that's what this dial is for. So you can change the dial, you can increase it or reduce it. It goes all the way to one, from 0 to 1. So you can actually type in number, the figure too, if you like. You can take 4.5 for 50% of the dial. Okay, so you notice that when I type zero point 0.5, the original color of white is, let me make this right. The original color is of white is on the surface actually, but the color of the interior is looking like as if the interior is made up of something milky white or something red or strawberry color, kind of milkish uh, feel. So that's just, so if you wanted to create something like I don't know, something like a plastic, yeah, you might want to use something like this too, or like a human texture skin or something like that. So it's really up to you. Okay, so let me reduce that and take it away and make it 0, so we don't
Water
have
don't
any
scarce.
subsurface effect right now. Okay, so that's all about the subsurface, and then subsurface radius. This is more just like the actual color, but in a 3D form, in a how do I put it? In a palette form. I don't know how to explain, but you probably will not be using it so much, so I don't want to go too much about it. If I start talking about it too much, it might confuse a lot of people. Okay, so let's ignore that for now. Okay, so now subsurface IOR is still kind of like the talking about the subsurface, but in this case, it's the IOR is talking about how light will bend, or how light will, yeah, how the speed of light basically, or how light will bend through the object. When you have a glass object, right, and you look through a glass object, it will seem as if, especially if the glass object is curved, it look as if the object behind it, like a lens, like the object behind it is kind of magnified or shrunken. So that's because the reason for that is because those of us that are in sciences will understand what I'm talking about more. So the reason for that is because the way light passes through glass, its speed changes, and then it's kind of deflected. Okay, so that's why if you're looking through a lens, the object behind it will be bigger. So that's what this IOR is talking about. It's kind of like you control the way the density of the object, so that the way the light passes through the object will change. I'm getting too technical and I don't want to do that. So let me pause on that. I hardly ever use it, so you probably will not be using it too as such. Okay, so let me skip this subsurface and anisotropy too. So now another major one that you need to know is the metallic. Okay, now this metallic um is you although there's a dial to increase it from 0 to 1 like as such, but usually what I would advise is if you want to make any object metallic, just make it either fully 0 or fully 1. If the object is a metal, make it fully 1, make it fully a metal. And notice when I increased it, this bottle kind of changed into a metal or look like an aluminum kind of shape, like a metal. Okay, all right. So in if you ask me, the major things you'll be using in this principal shader is this base color, the metallic, this specular, this roughness, this roughness, emissions sometimes maybe, or transmissions, and just a few of these. You won't be using all of this. Okay, you won't be using a lot of this clear coat roughness, IOR. You won't be using it as such, or unless if you are making it transparent, or well, technically it just depends on the nature of your object. But let's move on. Okay, so if you changed if the object was a metal object, like if you wanted to make this a metal object, that's when you increase this up to the highest. Okay, so let me do something. Okay, just forget about what I did. It doesn't really matter for me. Okay, so if your object is a metallic object, so that's where you likely want to increase it to the highest. But if it's not a metallic object, in the 3D texturing world, there's something they call dielectric and I can't remember the second thing, but it just means one. Yeah, there are two types of objects generally in the 3D world. There's a metallic object and a non-metallic object. Okay, there's a metallic object and yeah, dielectric and metallic. Okay, so there's dielectric and metallic. Dielectric are objects that are not metal, and metallic objects are basically or everything metal. So take your anything that is made of metal basically, sure. So because and the reason for that is because the way you texture metals is obviously different from the way you texture um, non-metallic objects. Okay, so that's that about metals. There's really no big deal about it. So if your object is a metallic object, you be you be you will have to do with this. Okay. So now specular and roughness. Specular, specular is like the name is implies. Specular, it's kind of talks about the shininess. I don't know. I don't know if that's a word. It talks about the shininess of an object. Okay. So if you increase this or you reduce this, you notice that it's a little bit subtle. If you have a good eye, that's when you easily notice it. If you if your object if you notice as I increase this, it's kind of a little bit shinier. Okay, and usually the specular works hand in hand with the roughness. Okay, this roughness. Ignore the specular tint. The effect is very minimal, and unless you are looking for all this very perfect, very photorealistic visual, you will not be using some of these settings. Okay, so now the specular and the roughness they work hand in hand. So it's like the more specular it is, the less rough it will be, and the more rough it is, the less specular it is. So it's kind of like they are kind of like opposites in a way. What I found in the overall look that it gives to the object. Okay, so say if I reduce this roughness now, notice that it's now very shiny, very shiny. You can see how shiny it is. It's quite very shiny because the reason is because the roughness is all the way to 0 and the specular is all the way to 1. Now if I reduce the specular all the way to 0 and the roughness all the way to 1, that's that it's very unshiny. Yeah, very unshiny. And um so that's just the basic of the specular and the roughness. So if your object, so it just put all these kind of features into mind. So anything you're creating, anything at all, whatever you're creating, so when you want to texture it, you take time to look at the features or the physical features of how the actual material or the object looks like, so that you can know how to texture this. So if you're holding something that is not shiny at all, you'll be like, okay, yeah, if it's not shiny, then you know that it has a higher roughness. You likely want to increase the roughness. If it's shiny, you likely want to reduce the roughness and increase the specular. Okay, So, but what you might be wondering, what if the object is like complicated object that there are parts of it that are shiny, there are parts of it that are not shiny. I'll talk about that shortly. Um, because what I've been doing since is like whatever I did, it applied to the entire object. Okay, so I'll talk about how you can put particular material attributes on a particular part of the object, another material attribute on another part of the object. Okay, so please, I believe we have a blender turned on. I'll be asking us to do something shortly. We're doing an exercise shortly, and yeah, and it's going to be a live exercise. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so now that's really all about roughness and specular. Okay, so I want to talk about this anisotropy and anisotropic rotation and Shane. I won't talk about a lot of this because you will hardly use them. Trust me, you hardly use them. And then I'll talk about the last these three here: this IOR, transmission, and transmission roughness. Okay. So now, what is IOR? I told you IOR. Whenever I see IOR in Blender, it's like it's talking about I want to see it's talking about the density of an object. And those of us in the sciences will know that for a transparent object, the density will determine how fast how fast the light will pass through it, or how fast a wave will just pass through it. I'm sorry for using for going technical for those of us that are not in the sciences. But basically, the best way I can I can explain it is maybe I should just show it in action so you see it. Let me add the transmission. And now the transmission, although it's you can actually go from 0 to 1 to 4. I will suggest you make this fully 1. Just for explanation, let me make this fully 1. Okay, let me put this roughness all the way to 0. Okay. Now the effect is not very visible in the way I would want. Give me a second, please. Yeah. Um, don't worry. You understand what I'm doing in a few classes after, but for now it will not. It may seem as if I'm just looking randomly. And that's because Blender behaves different way in different render engines. Okay, so we'll be talking about render engines later on in future class, but we can't talk about it now because it's beyond the scope of this class, of this particular class. Okay, okay. So I think we're good. Okay, so coming back here now. All right, so now notice that when I increase the transmission, let me reduce it back. When I brought it all the way to 1, it's the turn this object to kind of like a glass object. So whenever you see something like transmission and IRR, it's talking about the transparency of your object. It's talking about the transparency. Sorry, the transparency of your object. Okay. So now it's looking very transparent. I don't. Let me add the another object that will make us see this clip properly. So let me add the it's fair, for example. This is fair. Okay, so let me delete this and okay, so let me add a sphere to it. So this is fair. Let me shade smooth. So exactly, excellent. All right, so this is it. You notice that I've turned our object into a glass object. So that's what transmission does. Okay, it turns it from either from a glass object to an opaque object. All right, so um, let me if I turn it all the way down, my blender is running is kind of lagging because what blender whenever you're tweaking materials, blender is trying to calculate different the change in the material, so and it does that in real time. So if your system is not it's not a strong or a very powerful system, you might experience a bit of lag. Okay, but don't worry, it's temporary. Okay, so that's what transmission does. Now, what if you wanted to adjust how transparent an object is? You know, like if you might you know all these kind of office glasses, right? Office glass doors that are not really transparent. They are transparent in a sense, but they are not. They you can't really make out the figure of what of the person behind the glass. Okay, so if you wanted to do something like that, you adjust the transmission roughness. Okay, so the rougher it is, you can see what's happening to the let me increase this. You can see what's happening to the orb. Okay, so when I increase this, when I reduce the transmission roughness all the way down, it's very transparent, very transparent, and it's still behaving like a lens. Okay, all right. But if I increase it all the way up, that means you can see that it's becoming somewhat um so the roughness is becoming somewhat cloudy. Excellent, that's the word. It's becoming somewhat cloudy. So that's what the roughness does, the transmission roughness. So that's its function. So you can tweak this to the level of which you want the object to look like. Now you notice that it's looking like a lens object, but what if you wanted this to be very, you don't want it to be to deform light as much, to deform the image behind it as much as, or maybe you want to change how well it deforms the image. That's when you mess with this IOR. I told you IOR, it tweaks the density of the object such that the way light passes through it or the way light bends through it will kind of change. Okay, so when you reduce it, okay, when you reduce it, for example, it becomes a more straightforward. You can see how it's changing the kind of the way the object acts like a lens. Okay, so this is based on discretion. There's no rule about this. Okay, so it's based on discretion. So you can, if you go way too down, it will start behaving somewhat like a mirror ball. All right, exactly. So you can see how this is it looks weird. Okay, so you can, if you take this all the way up, ideally if you're making something like a glass, you want to use something above one something 1.2 or 1.45 basically. So that's the ideal for glasses generally, but depending, it's all based on your discretion. If there's no rule about it, so you can see as I increase it, you can go all the way up, but you get a point
I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
where the effect, as I go down, let me go to 145, 1.45. Okay, all right. So that's how this looks like. Now by default, Blender is calculating is treating the entire object like a solid object. Okay, so let's say I added back a sphere. Sorry, water bottle. Let me open someone else's water bottle now, so work with it. Let's say like this. Let me open. Okay, maybe I open this one. Okay, so we have this water bottle. All right, so what if you want to add this to a water bottle now? The texture, you want to make it transparent, okay? Because the water bottle is somewhat glassy like, but you notice that yeah, this is the thing. If you want your object to look accurately to like the real thing in the real world, you have to pay attention, very much close attention to the materials. Okay, so if you want this object to look transparent or to look the kind of transparent that a water bottle is, because look at a water bottle now, you notice that the transparency in this in the in the water bottle is slightly different. You might not really notice it now, but if you observe closely, there's a way you can look at this and tell that this is a plastic, and the way you look at this and at first glance you know that this is a glass. Okay, I don't know if you understand what I mean. Okay, can I get some responses?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. So it's all about how much effort you put into the little details. Like you can the only difference between the two of them might just be as little as, okay, one is a little bit more shiny than the other. And by default, by our default human mind, when you look at one, you know that this automatically a glass. And you look at another and you say this automatically a plastic. It's just they are both transparent though, but one is glass, one is plastic. So it's all about knowing the small tiny details. Okay, putting attention to the details. All right, so let's say this now, for example. Now let me shade it smooth. Okay, Let me shade it smooth. Now let me add a material to it. Remember, you click the object to add to. Then you want to add material. Then you click new to add the material to it. Okay. Do you have any questions on what on the things I've spoken about so far? The base color, the specular, the roughness. Hello.
I have no questions.
Okay. Please.
Questions.
All right. So please don't forget that if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me so I can get back to you. We are getting to parts of blend that are very important now. Texturing and material. You cannot overestimate the importance because without that's usually the where you be where you be focusing on when you are doing cross compatibility. That's between Blender and your XR platforms. Okay, so materials and texturing. That's you need to focus on that a lot. All right. So now, if I wanted to make this transparent now, I'll have to come to the transmission and maybe increase it. Maybe we go all the way up. Okay. So we've gone all the way up. Give me a second. Let me change the render engine. Okay. And also, sorry. Now you understand why I usually do this anytime I'm open up Blender in another class, but I won't talk about this class because it's kind of beyond the scope of this class. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so we're good. All right. So now, if you notice, if I want to make this fully transparent, I increase the transmission all the way up. But you notice that it's kind of still acting as if it's a bit cloudy, even though the transmission roughness is down. Okay, and that's because the surface roughness itself is actually a little bit up. It's 50% up. Okay, and if I wanted to change that, all I have to do is bring that down, and we have a fully transparent object. Okay, so this object is fully transparent now. It's 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 almost transparent, fully transparent. It's looking glass. It's not looking very glass like. Okay, let me show you fast so you see it better. All right, good. Okay, so now that's really all about the transmission roughness and transmission surface and the IOR to change how the light will pass through the object. Okay, so now you notice that even though we have a transparent material on this, it's still the object doesn't still look like a water bottle per se. It just looks kind of solid, and that's because by default, unless the walls of the object has thickness, then that will calculate everything as one as how you have a glass. Imagine this shape was entirely made of glass. That's how Blender will calculate it. Blender will not understand that this is a bottle that has a wall thickness and then the inside the interior is hollow. And by default, the only way you can do that is you come here to the modifiers panel. So the way to change that look is you come to the modifiers panel. And remember we spoke about solidify modifier. Now, let me call someone at random. Do you remember what does the solidify modifier do? Let me say Busola, do you know what the solidify modifier does? Busola Oni Sesi. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Yes, Busola, we're waiting for you. I'm asking a question. Hello. Okay, how about you, Godwin? Seems Busola is not with us. Godwin,
Um, Solidify modifier, I think it adds thickness to our object, material, our object rather.
it does what?
It adds thickness to our object.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what solidify modifier does. It adds thickness. Okay. So looking at this object now, it has no. It's Blender, but as far as Blender is concerned, this object has no thickness. So it will take the entire object as one whole solid object. All right. Meanwhile, it has thickness. So to do that, we come to this modifier panel here, and then we add a solidify modifier. Just look for it. Solidify modifier, and you click and you add. Okay. Okay, so now it still looks as if it's not really adding, and that's because the thickness itself is so low that Blender doesn't really recognize it. So you can actually increase it, and by you can increase it a bit, and you may not really still see an effect until you go into the rendered view. Okay, let me quickly just add some lighting to my scene. Now I'm talking about this world lighting shortly too. Or maybe I'll just add. Just give me a second. I'll explain what I'm doing shortly. I just wanted to. This is just for you to be able to view this properly. Okay. Mm, okay. Good. Okay. Good. So um, now what's happening is why it will seem as if the object is kind of uh it's kind of pixelating before it kind of stabilizes is because I'm in rendered view. Okay. Now rendered view. Why rendered view behave like this? Because Blender is trying to calculate all the maths, everything at once. Now when you're in solid view, Blender is only calculating the look of the object. When you're in material view, Blender is only calculating the material, the base materials that are on the object, without calculating the behavior of this material relative to lighting, relative to how they interact with light. But whenever you are in rendered view, which is like the ultimate view, Blender will is calculating how this object is, how the materials are on the object, how light is interacting with the material object, and how the light passes through and everything. Okay, so that's why it will have to pixelate a bit before Blender finishes calculating. And this is the speed of this. It depends on how sophisticated your system is. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, so now let me go back to object. Okay, now notice that in this view now, it looks our object looks a lot more like a water bottle, like the way it looks now. So I can even reduce this thickness because if you go close enough, you see that the wall thickness is kind of too much for a water bottle. So maybe I just reduce this one. I don't know. I think I can leave it at point one. Maybe point one. Okay, 0.01 rather. Yeah, I think this is okay now. Now notice that this looks very well like a water bottle, much more like water bottle. Although it's still looking a little bit too transparent for a water bottle, and it's looking a little bit dark. It doesn't look so much like the water bottle. So what we're going to do, we're going to come and tweak our materials a bit. Okay. So a water bottle is fully transparent, so it won't really increase this transmission roughness. It's not as cloudy as some of I think. So maybe I'll just bring this all the way up, and then the water bottle is slightly blue. I don't know if I still have it around. Oh, I think I discarded. So let's use this reference. Okay, the water bottle. You notice that the plastic bottle color it looks kind of blue. So what we'll do is for to the base color, we'll just make it slightly blue, ever so slightly. You just increase the blue. You notice that this is very very responsive, so you want to reduce it slightly. And if you want to edit this in such a way that you want to mess with only one color, depending on the color system that you are familiar with. Like for those of us that use Photoshop a lot, I'm sure you'll be familiar with this color system that uses hex. Okay, it's called hex, where you have letters and alphanumeric to know what the color is. So maybe I don't know, maybe color white would be F something. I don't know. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that would be color white or something. So if you are familiar with this kind of color system, you can just come here and then type in the figure like. But if you use this HSV system, you can just come here. Or if you use RGB means red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha is just transparency. Okay, so when you whenever if you are familiar with this kind of color system, so that means if you reduce the less green an object is, it will tend towards the red and bluish um, part. So the less red it is, it will tend towards the bluish and the greenish part, depending on this. So tweaking all this will give you your color, the kind of color you want, or you can just come here and pick on the color that you want, and it will automatically do that. Okay. So these are just different color systems that you might be familiar with. So whichever one it works for you. For me, I just use the color palette anyway. So just click around. Okay, so what we said is we're trying to make this slightly blue. So maybe we just uh wait, let's make everything, since we are reducing the blue, we want to be specific about that. So maybe we should use RGB. Okay, so now slightly reduce this to green to be slightly downward. Maybe reduce the red a little bit more to give that blue look. Okay, so let's look at it now. By my look, this is a little bit too transparent for a water bottle. So you might want to increase the transmission roughness a little bit, just a little bit, so it doesn't get too cloudy. Uh, I think it's a bit too cloudy now. Let's bring this down. Yeah, I think we're good for now, just for reference. Okay. So now that's it. That's really all the king to it about the transmission and transparent of it. So just know that whenever you are dealing with objects that are transparent, what you'll be messing with these three modules in your principal shader. Okay, you're messing with that three controls to control how transparent or the kind of transparency, how rough or the kind of color of the transparency. Okay, so now, what if you wanted to create an object that, I don't know, say you wanted to model a light bulb, okay, a light bulb, or you wanted to model a phone screen, okay. Now you notice that the phone itself, like the back of the phone is plastic and this, then the screen is also plastic, but the screen is emitting light, meaning that it's bright, okay, it emits light. So how do you create materials like that? You can also create materials like that in Blender, and what you do is you come to emission here, okay, and this emission here, it comes to emission here, and I can do it. Yeah. All right. So you come to this emission here. Sorry, can you still see my screen? Hello.
Yes.
Okay, good. You come
Yes.
to the
Yes.
emission here. Now you notice that usually by default it will be black. Sometimes it might not, or whichever way. So you want to increase the saturation. Notice that as I'm doing that, the object is turning into a glowing a glowing object basically. Okay, so you can actually make change the color to the same way you do with the base color. So you can do what change to whatever color you like. So maybe you want a blue emission, you want it to emit blue, you want to emit red, whichever way. Just change the color. You can do that too, and you can increase the intensity of the emission here, the saturation here. Okay, so now if you want to increase the strength of how powerful the emission is, how bright the light is literally. So what you do is you come to this emission strength, you can type in whatever number you like here, whatever number anyway. So you can go as far as 1100, I don't know, just, but you just know the however bright the bright light is, the usually Blender has more default calculating higher figures. Okay, but it's not too much of a big deal, but just whichever one works for your scene. Okay, all right, so that's it with the emission strength. Okay, now the alpha, this alpha, like I said, anywhere you see alpha in Blender, it's talking about the transparency. Okay, it's talking about transparency. Now alpha, you can make your objects. Now you've got my wondering what's different between this alpha and this transmission. Now this transmission is not really transparent. It's not really making your object transparent. It's actually making your object opaque to not. It's sorry. It's actually making objects like glassy rather than transparent. Okay. Now if you reduce this alpha, it will just make your object sort of vanish, like vanish into thin air. It won't even appear at all. So that's the point of the alpha. And then you might be wondering why would you want the object to vanish? Well, there are times when you want that, or if you're trying to create a map. Now I'll talk about map shortly. Um, where, like I said, I'll be talking about a situation where you have some parts of an object that are bright, that have one color or one material, and some parts of the object that have a different material or a different texture. Okay, so this alpha, that's all this alpha is about. It's all about making your object bright or not bright. Make your object opaque or not opaque. That's transparent or not transparent. All right. So that's really all about alpha. Now normals is an entirely different word. Normal is talking about the um how like it's talking about the surface geometry, or how your textures will behave in geometry. So let's say for example, yes, let me add a plane and explain this better. Okay, so let me hide this for example. Hide everything. Let me add in a plane. Okay, and add in a plane. Now, the normals, unless you want a more realistic texture, you probably will not you may not use it as often as you think, but and
Like,
actually it's a little
yeah,
bit
when I
advanced,
say
but it's
class,
but you don't need to worry about. I will explain it though because you might be using it too.
don't
So
worry,
now, if you wanted to add a normal,
kind of
a
visual design and stuff.
let me add a basic texture to this.
And I'm really like,
Or before I do that,
like
I'll be
things
explaining
like
about my maps so that I'll use that to explain how you use normal. Okay. So normal is just basically this is basically deforming the your object. Okay. So if you
I
had
said,
the like if you wanted to add a material to
your
this and your
graphics
material is in
designer
such a way that maybe you're having a rock or a brick wall, for example, notice that the surface of the brick wall is not entirely flat
down
per
to my
se. It's
design
like the bricks are
sharp.
having bulges, they are bulging out of
That's where
the
I'm at for it.
object. And if you want to simulate that in textures, you want to have that appear on your text on your material. That's when you use this normal.
When
Okay.
I say
Okay. So now each to connect this to anything, um, what you usually connect this to is you connect this usually to maps. Okay. Now what are maps? Okay. This is another aspect of texturing. It's like saying you want um it's still talking about if you want a part of an object to be in a certain way and a part of an object to be in another certain way. So say for example, you want let me add back the bottle, and then I'll add I'll do it to such a that part of the material is one color and part of the material is another color. Okay. So to do that, go to edit mode. All right. Just hold on a minute. The reason why I'm doing that
Actually,
is because I want to use it to explain
UX
the
and
maps.
UI
But before I do that, let me just
design is
make it
cool.
dynamic colors,
Actually,
dynamic
if you are
artwork.
grounded
Okay.
in UI and
So if I
UX
wanted
design,
this cap,
it's
the
easier
cap,
for you to actually
notice that in the
transition
reference, the cap is
into
blue, right? If I
designing
wanted the cap
because this is more
of
this
the water
is
bottle
in the SR space when I'm talking more of
to be blue, for example, now.
3D
Okay,
designs,
let me go to
modeling and all that.
go
It's
for
not the regular graphics. Like well, normally the ability to do graphics
okay.
is
So
ideal. So like okay, already know
if I
know
wanted
how
the
to
cap to be blue now,
Photoshop
I'll
like that.
select. Let me go
And
to
when you
what
get into
material so blue.
3D
If I'll
design,
select the material,
easier. You
the
can
top,
actually use
and then I'll
Photoshop
come back to the
for
material,
3D.
and
You
I'll
can
click this
use
plus
Blender.
icon.
So
Okay.
like
Now I'm the
this
material view. I click
is
on this material icon. Remember,
5
and I'll
months
click this plus icon to
so
add a new
course.
material.
So this one
Okay,
now, this
apart
Blender
from the
is not
original
going
material
to
we
help
had.
you.
Okay, so I'll click the
Just
plus
this
icon
is
to add
one
the
on
new
how
material.
to use
And the new material by
3D
default now is black, so I can now click
solutions
on this new.
designs
Okay, to
to
create a
import
material.
or
I can
export
name it. Please,
to
you might want to
another
try and name your material so you won't get
software
lost.
or another background.
I don't know, let's just say cap.
Maybe
Cap blue.
you
All right.
totally want to rethink
So
like
click the drop down to
and do
indicate so you can
graphics,
see
Please,
do the
can you
drop
come
down.
again? Can you come again?
stuff like that.
Sorry, who's that? What did you say?
Godwin, can you come again?
Okay, let me start from let me go back a bit because I noticed it's like I'm confusing you guys. Okay, now if you wanted to create a water bottle, let's say you wanted to make this water bottle now, this water bottle, right? That will be green. Okay, you've created the model of the water bottle. That's the
I am
model
with
in
the
the
for sure
2D
like
view.
this.
You've created this, all right. But now you want to add materials to it. You want to make it look like this water bottle. That means the body will be transparent, and then you add the label, and then you add the cap, which is blue. The cap is not transparent. Okay, so if you want to do all that, you first of all, what you will do is you understand how many materials you have, how many different materials that you have. the first material is this transparent part of the material. So that means the if you look at it now, you know that the water bottle has three materials. Okay, so the first material is the transparent one, this transparent look of the body. Okay, the second material is the cap. Okay, now the third material is this label. All right, do you understand that, Godwin?
What the fuck, man?
Do you understand that? Hello.
Yes, I do. I understand that.
All right. So so if you have so since you have three different materials on the object, what you want to do is you want to create three different type of materials so you can apply them on different parts of the object. I noticed that from the explanation I've been making since, it's as if any material you add. Sorry, turn on my camera. Okay. So you notice that from all the explanation I've been making since, it's as if any material you add to an object, it will apply to the whole thing. To apply to the whole thing. So what I'm trying to do now is that I'm trying to teach you to apply materials to different parts. Say like the cap is going to be a different color. Notice that the cap is green, and then the body is somewhat transparent, and then there's a label or something like that. Those different materials to different parts of the same object. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do. All right, you get that? Do you get that? Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. I
All
get
right,
that.
good. And I said we've observed that our reference has three materials. So we need to add three different materials to this solid object. So how do we do that? Let me look all the materials and start from the beginning, okay? So by default, it doesn't have any material, okay? So first, we want to add a material. You can click new or you can just click plus here, okay, to add a material slot, and just click new, okay? So but when you click new, it's added the material. So let's make this the cap material, okay? Let's just say cap, bottle cap. Let's say bottle cap. A bottle cap, okay? I know that a bottle cap is it's a blue plastic, all right? So we can finish before we continue editing or changing the nature of the settings for the bottle cap. Let's add another material, which will be the body, okay? So that's the bottle body. Let's name this one bottle body. Body. Yeah, let's leave it like that. Okay. So the third material that we spoke about is the label, okay? That's the different third material that is on the object. That's the label, okay? So we add in the label as third material. So now in this object, our water bottle object material there are three materials that we've added on it. Now by default, even if you go into a material display mode now, it's not really show anything because all the materials are just they are the default materials. We've not started tweaking them to do this, that's the materials. So that's how the materials are default right now. So first thing we want to do is let's start with the cap, okay? Now to assign the different parts of the material to different parts of the object, we note that in our reference, every part of the water bottle is transparent except the cap and the label. All right. So first of all, let's go into into the edit mode. Tab to go into edit mode. Notice what I did. I went to tab to go to edit mode. Okay. And maybe I should go into a layout because I think that view is scary enough. This layout is scary enough. Let's go to the default layout. Okay. So now we select our materials properties. Okay. So now we'll select the cap. Okay, since we are trying to assign to the cap, we select the cap and we select only the cap on this object too, on the object itself. So what I did was I pressed Alt and then click to select the ring to make the ring select, and then I'm going to select the top too. Okay, let's assume this is the cap. All right, so everything I've selected is the cap. Now you come here and with this cap, bottle cap, the material bottle cap selected, then click assign. So that means that any change you make to that bottle cap will only affect the top, the cap, the will only be seen on the cap. All right. So if you turn this bottle cap material, if you turn it to blue, that means the cap here will be blue. If you turn the bottle cap material to red, that means the cap here will be red. Okay. You understand what I mean? Hello, Godwin.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand.
Could they
Someone said someone I just heard someone say,
No, no, no.
okay. All right. So the same way you did for the bottle cap, that's what you did for the minutes. Okay. So you select the other parts. You can select the other parts of the other parts that will be having this transparent fluid. Select them, and then you assign them to the bottle body. Okay. So now, because basically every part of this object is bottle body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A
Okay,
to select everything.
that's fine.
Then another shortcut way is you now select the bottle cap. You know we've assigned a bottle cap to it, this to the bottle cap, right? So you now deselect this. Now it might have some issue because let me explain this. If you the first material you add by default that will be the material of the entire object. Unless you start assigning, okay, this part is this part is that, this part is this color, this part is this material, this part is this material. So you might just need to press A to select everything. Let me just deselect this part and then this part, the cap, right? Okay, and
Thank you.
let me. I've selected every other thing now, and I'm going to add the bottom body to it because every part I've selected now is the part that's going to be transparent. Okay, don't worry, we'll come to the label shortly. So I'm going to assign bottle body. Now notice that it's assuming as if nothing happened, but it's actually assigned. Okay. So lastly, I'm going to assign the part that's going to be the label. Let me select everything. The ring select. How I'm doing this ring select is I'm going to press Alt down and I'm going to click on one of the faces or the edges or the vertices. I'm going to select everything all around the object, right? So now we come to this label and select assign it as label. Now it seems as if nothing is happening. But let me deselect everything. This is how you know that you've assigned your materials properly. Go to whichever material that you want to know which faces are assigned to it. So let's start with the bottle cap. Okay. Now you come to these options here. Notice that these options will only appear in edit mode. So if you're in object mode, the options will disappear. But if you're in edit mode, the options this assign, select, deselect will appear. All right. So you select the object, the material, the material that you want to know which parts of this object are assigned to. So you now click select. If you click select, it will select all the material that are assigned to you. So anything you do to this material, maybe you make this material slot because each of them are slots. Okay, make this material slot. Let's say make it purple, for example. That means this cap will be purple. Now you can't see it because we're in solid view, but if you come into material view, notice that it has turned purple now. Okay? So same thing goes for the body. So if you select the body, all right. I want to change the color of the body. Maybe you now come to this place. Maybe just make the body red for some reason. Notice that all the body has not been red. It has not been made red. Okay, except the label part. Okay, so this part is for the label, and that's why no material has been applied to it yet. So you can click on this label and come to the this base color and change the color to, I don't know, whichever color you want. Okay, this is green. So now you can see how you can now change the different colors of different parts of the object. All right, different colors of different parts of the object. All right. So now it's not good enough to just know how to change different colors of different parts of the object. We have to be able to change them to the actual colors that we want them to look like. All right. So from our reference, we want the cap to be blue, okay, and a blue plastic, especially not just blue plastic. We want the body to be a transparent plastic, and just slightly blue too. And then we want the label to have like a company logo and what company, I don't know, writings and all the details of the bottle, okay, like manufacturing date, whatever, and everything. So that's what we want on the label, okay. So now, how do we do that? let's come to our shading. Let's come to our shading view. So we'll be using because we're using our node editor. Okay? So now this, in case you haven't noticed, or in case you don't know, this is a node editor, and it's called node editor because the way you assign something things from materials to materials is by connecting nodes by connecting nodes like this point.
No worry,
They are
they come
called
for
nodes
me.
now. You collect one point to another point. Um, so that's basically how you assign. It's as
I
simple
thought
as
you
that.
shoot
So
people
if you
for
have like
Lagos.
if you created like
Yes, see the
a
video
glass
now.
material now, you have to apply it to the final material output.
He
Okay.
there, the gunshot.
So that's how to make. That's what you all you have to do to make it permanent, to make it
See the
reflect
people,
permanently
they
on the
carry them
actual
enter
output.
motor.
Okay. So now,
Because
how do you go about
they
this?
know vote, they want
First
no
of
one
all,
vote
since
APC.
we are dealing with bottle cap, you come into the this all our material slots here. Okay. If please note, if you can't see your material slot, make sure you have this
They say more
icon
go,
selected.
more
That's
go
the
our
way it
place.
should be. So by default, you might have
That's what they
something
say now.
different.
Make
Okay, so
people know
just
they
come down
interfere
here
for
and select
their
this
election
all
for Lagos.
located. That's your icon
They
for
say
the
make
material
they
tab.
give us
You just
Biafra, they
select
say
it.
no.
All right. Okay, so first of all, let's start with the bottle cap, which is a blue plastic. Let's select the bottle cap, the blue plastic. Okay.
And
So
funny
by
thing,
default, these
this
are
thing they happen
I
for
told you by
front of
default you add
police.
the principal shader connected to your material output.
As at
So default.
yesterday, they even they attack
So
Nollywood
now,
actresses.
how do you
God
do that?
no
I
go.
told you that if you are dealing with anything that has to do with the surface color, what you change is
He
the
said if
base
you
color.
dress well
Base
yesterday,
color is like the
they
default.
go
It's like the
suspect you,
major
go
color of the
pursue you, say may you go
object
and
that
pay
you
the
that
go
you're messing
person.
with, that you're texturing.
Once you
Okay,
dress
so you come
responsible,
to this base
you
color,
be
so
go
and you
person.
just um select the color that most looks like bottle cap. To get
But you want carry me
about
go
this
to
is
Lagos,
okay.
eh?
Be a little bit brighter. I don't know, just tweak it.
Aboki people no fight
It's
for
not there's
election
no
now.
rule to
Yoruba
it
people,
whichever way. So just make it whichever way you
what place
want.
is Lagos?
Okay, so I think this is enough for our bottle cap. Yeah, I think
They
that's
say
okay
no more no man's land
for the
though.
bottle cap. So we have the basic since the bottle cap is a plastic and doesn't have transparency, we won't be touching any other thing. And of course it's not a metal, so we'll make sure that this metallic is set all the way to 0. Okay.
We
So
go go
now
on.
the major things we'll be touching
This is
here
a
is
big
the
deal.
specular
And them go
specular and
suffer.
the roughness. Now, because it's a plastic, usually most plastics are kind of shiny in a way. Not so shiny, but if you look at this default preview, material preview to show you how it looks like actually, how it will look like even in the render view. So that's it will give you an idea of how your object look like. So the actual bottle cap looks something exactly like that. Okay, so the specular being 50%, the roughness being 50%, I think it looks okay. So if it suits your satisfaction, you can leave it the way it is. Okay, and you're done with the bottle cap. So you move on to your next material, which is the bottle body, and that's this transparent looking stuff. Okay, so our bottle body is not red, it's not opaque, it's transparent, and it's slightly blue. So how do we do that? And I told you, if you are doing with, or if you are texturing anything that has transparency, what you'll be tweaking or what you'll be changing is your transmission. Okay. So what we do is we turn our transmission. We can turn it all the way up. Okay. Now it's still red because our base color is red, and since we know that our bottle is not our base color is not red, so what we want to do is we want to change that red color to slightly blue color. Let's bring it I think slightly blue is okay. Yeah, slightly blue is okay. I think
I swear.
this is about the color. Okay, so notice that we're
This is what I
looking more and
know.
more like a water bottle now.
I hope, guy.
Okay, I'll follow you, please. Please, if you have questions, feel free. Hello.
I'm not able to select my material though, especially the bottle cap.
Okay, can you share your screen right now so we can so let me see what you're doing. Open
I
your water bottle exercise, the assignment today. Is that what you haven't opened up?
I opened it already, but I'm not watching through my system through my phone, so I'll be sharing my system through my phone, kind of.
Yeah, whichever way.
Okay.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, I'm coming. Sorry.
So I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share your screen too.
I just okay.
For 3 people. Now why you get like this? Okay. Okay.
Uh, sorry, maybe just carry on. I don't know what's wrong with the
Jagaban
phone.
now. Oh, now vote for Jagaban,
Okay,
man.
all right. But tell me the nature of your of
Ah,
what
now
you're
I thought
explaining
they
so
said Kogi no one vote
we
here.
can solve it.
30
Please,
November.
everyone else should also get ready. You said sharing your
Then
screenshot
they say
too.
Kogi till
So
November.
Stefan, Mubarak, Absalam, Chill,
Hmm.
and everyone else should also get ready. So make sure that everyone's
Hmm.
following along.
How far?
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is it. I
Yeah, you don't
selected
understand now. See, you don't know
the
what will be the
the
problem.
part of the cap the way you did yours, and then I clicked assign. But after
Okay.
assigning, I went back to click select. But it's not selecting the cap; it's selecting the whole bottle again.
Today,
Oh, that's because wait. Okay, like you're still in edit mode.
Yeah, I'm still in edit mode.
Okay, yeah, like that's what I said. I said by default, if you add a material to an object, okay, it will add the material to the entire object. Okay, so even if you assign only a part to it,
I'm not
the
saying
other
let's
are
use
parts
it.
since they are already assigned to.
I
They are,
say
it's like
market
they are
square.
everything is assigned to the first material. So everything will still be the first object. Okay, so you have to
No,
um
market square they
reassign those
Guarimpa.
ones
Close to
separately
Jabi.
manually
Close to
like one
Jabi.
by one. You understand?
Oh,
Now Guarimpa it did not be Jabi sef.
yeah, that's
Uh,
what I did. I selected the cap
Jabi.
separately in the edit mode, or I can't do it in the edit mode.
Yeah.
can you see my screen?
Well, but I know say market square now. One
Can
for
you see
that
my
side,
I
I
screen?
can't hear
want to
you.
put outside.
Godwin.
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah, I can see
Okay,
your
good.
screen.
Let me do it again so you see what I mean. Okay.
Okay, so I appreciate that.
So I've closed everything. There's no material in this, right?
No, 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 no,
Okay.
not that side though. Mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah, I'm okay.
So what you did was
Oh,
right.
Jabi
You
is the
maybe
phone
you added the material. Let's
that's why
say
they call it
um
different. This
bottle
one I
cap,
inside
right?
Guarimpa now.
Yes, buttercup.
Bottle cap, right? So you click plus
Yes.
to add another material, right?
Yes.
It's not a head good. So let's say bottle body, right? Um, bottle body. Okay.
Eh?
And you added the
Yes.
third material, which was the label, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Indeed.
Good. So what you
Yes,
did was
yes.
you entered
Label.
into
For me, they fall as you can see.
edit mode, and then you select the body cap and try to add assign only this. Right?
Yes,
Is
I
that
tried to
correct?
assign that.
No difference.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm saying now is that when I added the bottle cap, right? What Blender did by default was it added all the materials in this object, everything. It added the entire bottle. It's as if they assigned the entire bottle to this bottle cap by default. That's what
Yes.
it did,
Yes, yes.
and that's how so it will assign that to this. So if you want to change the each aspect to different materials, you have to do it manually. You have to come into edit mode, then you select all the parts that you want to be associated with this bottle body.
I go give
Okay.
you. I say I
So in my
want go.
case, I want it since it's majority of the parts, so I'm going to select everything and only
You
deselect.
go Arab now.
Notice
Now
that I'm only deselecting
Arab go take.
the other parts. And to deselect a ring, it's just Shift Alt S. Okay. To
No go
deselect a
send.
ring. Notice how I select a ring with
Arab.
Alt click. Sorry. Then to deselect you Shift Alt click. All right. So I'm going to deselect the cap
Give
too.
me what?
I'm going to deselect this top. So everything that is selected now is is actually the transparent part of the bottle. So I'm going to just click on this bottle, every bottle body, and then assign. All right. So now it's the same as if nothing happened, of course, but it has actually been assigned. So the same thing I'm going to do with the label. Okay, so I'm going to select all the label parts and click label and assign. Right? You understand?
Yeah, I understand your
Now
point.
just to make sure that everything has been done now, I can just click on the label part, select and click on select. And if the part that is supposed to be the label part is the only thing I selected, then I know that that has been assigned properly. Then the same thing I'll do for bottle cap, bottle body. So I'll click on select. If every part that is going to be transparent is the part that is selected, then I know that it has been done properly. Same thing I'll do for the bottle cap. Okay. So if I do that and only the cap is selected, then I know that it has been done properly. Do you follow now?
Yeah, I'm following you, sir.
Okay. So Stefan and Mubarak, are you ready to share your screen? I'll be sharing shortly, and Shion.
For that grando.
Okay. Okay. So, um, what I'll be doing now, since I already have this. Okay. So now I'll be creating the materials now. All right. So now we don't need to enter into any mode of the material. We can just be in solid mode and we will see our previews. Okay. So now let's start with the bottle cap. Okay, clicking on the bottle cap. Remember what we want our bottle cap to look something like this. Okay. Please bear in mind, do you have this file? I don't know if I sent this file. This picture basically.
No.
Oh my bad. Maybe I'll share it immediately after this class. Please, someone should remind me before we end the class in case I forget. So I'll share this object so that I can use it for references. Or if you have a water bottle at home, you can also use that too. So a swan water bottle to have a reference of how the object looks. Okay. So now the bottle cap, we want to make it slightly blue. Okay. Not too blue. Just make it slightly blue. Does that look good enough? Yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, it's okay. Then we'll select the bottle body. Okay. Make sure you are changing you have the right material selected. You select the bottle body, or you can come here and click this drop down to select the one that you're actually working on. Okay. So the bottle body now, I told you that it's a bit transparent, and whenever you're doing anything transparent, what you want to tweak is your transmission. Okay. So you can bring the transmission all the way up. Okay, transmission all the way up now. And then change the color to something
with an award-winning broker.
To something slightly blue.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Landmark Corporate Realty Limited. I have got the phone number or click the link in the description to start a real estate
And now if you want to see how this will look in the final rendered view, what you want to do is just come to rendered view, because in material view it might not look perfect as it will look perfectly in rendered view, because it's not calculating how the light interacts. It's only calculating how the color looks generally. Alright, so let's go to rendered view. Don't worry, we'll be going back into material view because rendered view takes a lot of system calculation power. Alright, so just wait a few seconds for it to actually render like this.
You can't be walking it. Come, let me be in front. Let me handle this. Let me handle it.
Babe, calm down. Allow me to speak. You see,
So,
in this life,
I think we have
take responsibility of the action.
better
Now me spoil
looks.
am. Now me go must
It should be
repair
like
am.
it now.
Just leave me. Let me go and do my thing.
So let's go into
Apologize to him.
let's go back
Let me
into
start the conversation.
Hey, I don't want
into
this.
the
Can't I talk
materials.
for myself?
Okay?
Shall I not submit
So now this
like-
is where we come to another
Let me
interesting
talk
part.
to myself. I will
And
address
this is a
it
little bit more
calmly.
advanced.
Now you blowing high.
Now, how do
Now
we
you
add
snap am.
a label
Let me
to
do the
this?
thing. If
Okay.
I go beg am myself.
Now the first thing before you add a
I
label
want
to
peace
it,
to
you must
reign
have
on
had
us.
picture of the label. Right? So basically, how Blender does this is basically like just taking literally how you add a label to a water bottle in real life.
Hold on,
It's like you have a
Listen
flat,
to me. I will fix
a
this
flat
myself.
piece
I'll
of
do it
paper,
all
and then
alone.
you just slap
Right,
it
I stand.
on the
Landlord.
on the
Mr.
part on
Landlord.
the
Good
material.
afternoon.
That's
See,
exactly
I'm
how
so
Blender does
sorry
it. So,
about
something
what
exactly like
happened.
that.
Don't
So what
worry,
you
they
do is
provoke me, they
you need a
unleash
digital
the
file
demon
of
in me. I'm not like that. I'm a very
a picture
peaceful
file,
person. Even for my comfort and peace, they call
of
me.
whatever
Honestly, my
label you want
boyfriend, let me see
to
na
add to it.
IPD.
But since I don't have the
And as a
label
landlady, I
of
just did my right.
the water
They
bottle,
were
so I'll
talking
just
to
pick
me
any
anyhow,
random
and they're
picture
not
in
rich. People were not rich by food. They talk to me anyhow. Now, why I just
on my
unleash my
system, and I
driver
just slap
and
it
smack
on
down? I don't know, say that
the
you
water
go
bottle.
bypass.
Okay,
I don't know, say that
so
you
that's how
get
it
smart.
goes.
Don't
And
vex
to
my
do that,
landlord.
you can't just add the label. You might wonder how will you add the label, how will you add the pictures? To do that, you need to add a texture, not just any texture. You add an image texture. Okay, the shader for the
Okay,
image
landlord, now you had to
texture.
talk to now. Why are you quiet?
So what do you do?
They
You
disturb
press
you.
Shift A, and you notice that if you are in object mode, if you press Shift A, you have all your
Oh, get
mesh,
out
add
of my sight.
how to add
Now,
mesh,
the cost is
cubes, and
problem
all
for
the
this
stuff.
community.
But whenever you are in
And I
node
don't make
editor
everything again.
and press
And they
Shift
try
A
settle peace
to
with
bring
okay,
up
landlord. You still they touch me
it
for
will
shoulder.
bring
Do
up
you know who I am?
this
Do
option
you
to
know
add
who I
different
am?
shaders. And what you want to do, if you
Landlord,
don't know where
I
you
beg.
where you
No
want to
vex
looking
for
for,
me.
you
Now
just
the
type
situation.
you just come to the
Those
search
boys are
and type
demonic in
in
nature. Now
image
why they provoke me, they brought
texture.
no vex,
Okay.
eh?
So when you type image, it will show
Landlord,
you
just
the
give me 1
options.
minute.
What you are
I'll
looking
come
for
back
is
to
the
you. Let
image
me handle
texture.
this riff rap.
Okay.
Una dey craze. I go match
Okay.
now, so I
So,
go
but for
come
reference,
back.
let me just tell you where it is. If you press Shift A,
No
you're
respect.
actually in the texture.
I feel
What
like
you're
I'm
looking for is
reading
the
from
texture.
Nazi.
So
Enough of this
texture.
nonsense.
So you come to texture, it will bring in another drop
Okay,
down,
landlord.
and you
God
look
bless
for
for me.
image
You know, I
texture
need to
here.
deal with these
Okay.
guys.
So image
I need them to
texture.
respect
All
me,
right.
respect my relationship,
Okay.
and
Good. Image
respect you
texture.
too. They're constituting
So
this
now I've added an image texture, and to make the image texture, I told you in the node editor how you connect things to things is by using this middle connector. Basically, you just select the color, because what we're looking for is the color of the texture, right? Take the color and you attach it to the base color, which is the major color of this. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, that.
Just bear in mind we should be having the label selected. So since we are working on the label, all right. So click on the label. So what I had selected was the bottle body, which is not what we want to add the label to. We're adding the label to the actual label material. Okay. So Shift A to add the texture, and then click on texture. Okay, image texture. All right. So now you can connect these two to your base texture, base color. Okay. So now this will turn to black now, because reason why is because we've not selected any image that we want to add that I want to slap on that. But remember I told you that Blender does it just basically takes the image and slap it on the body of on the face of whatever you're adding the texture to. Okay. So now since I don't have the exact label of the the water bottle, what I'll be doing is I'll just pick any label at random, any picture that I have on my system at random. So let me just don't worry, I'm just navigating on my system to any random pictures. Um, I'm looking for something that looks. Yeah, let me just make some random posters. Anything. Let me just make this. Okay, for example. Okay. All right. Exactly. So now you notice that when I added it, it doesn't look at all like what I intended, and that's for a reason. In Blender, if you unless you tell Blender, most times it will not work. But unless you tell Blender that okay, this object I want you to let me use another object to explain this better. Let me add in a cube. Okay. Let me hide everything in this scene. I'm going to solve it and add in a cube. Okay. Now, quick question. How many of you remember this? Is it Snakes and Ladders? I think Snakes and Ladders. Or this kind of game that you play with a die, and it's usually at the bottom of that cabin biscuit. You know that cabin biscuit box. All right. So some of them come with a game on the back that is you play with a die. All right. So the die is like it's cut into the shape of the shape of the die is you have to cut out the bottom of the cabin biscuit, Please tell me if you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll use a different expression. You have to
False start there. I'll see that
fold
in
it
some bogey sir. Too
up
much of a
until it
hurry.
forms a cube. Okay, the actual how it died will look. So the part that is one is the one part of the two.
Inter have
I don't know if you
beaten
understand what I
Napoli,
mean.
so to Lazio this season there.
Do you understand? Hello.
Yes, I do.
Ski.
Okay. Let me Google a quick picture so you can see. Um. Okay. Yeah, it's just okay. Let me just I don't know how to explain. Let me come to this. Basically, you have to define to Blender that okay, because Blender will take if you want to abstract a texture on an object in Blender, you have to first define to Blender that okay, Blender take this 3D object and open it up into a flat surface. Okay, so it's just like saying you have to create. Look at this box now. The box you can actually open the box up to be flat. Of course, you can open this one up to flat because it's connected, but you can open it up to be flat, to be a flat surface. Okay, so that's what you do in Blender. You have to define Blender that to take this solid a solid cube object to open it up into a flat surface, and to do that for different objects, of course, it will likely be different. And don't get too worked up about this actually. If you want to open a cube, for example, usually there's no rule to per se. It's all about whichever one works for you. But usually you want to like select something like this. I'll unwrap this so that you see what I mean. Okay. You select all the edges that you want to be like the edges that are the cutting. If you want to cut this cube into a flat object, like open it up, the edge that you want to cut, like the opening to come from, you have to select those edges. Specifically select these edges. Okay, just imagine that a big knife is coming to cut this cube, the edges of this cube to make it a flat object. So select the edges, and let's select this one too, and this, and also this. Yeah. Perhaps these two. Okay. All right. Okay, good. So what after I have that selected, then I'll press Ctrl E. Okay, Ctrl E will bring up all the edge options. All right, and since you have selected edges, what you want to do is you want to mark them as same. Okay, like like an if you are sewing a cloth, you know what a seam is. Like that's the edges that's the parts that you join two part of the cloth together. So that's a seam. So you mark seam. All right, you look for mark seam. This mark seam over here, and you mark seam. And notice immediately you do that, the edges will turn somewhat red. Basically, they will turn red, and that's to show you that these edges have been blended and stand those edges to be okay. So after you've done that, after you mark those edges as same, then you select everything, A to select everything in the object, and then you press U to unwrap them, to bring up the unwrap options. Okay, so you like the name implies exactly. That means to open up the object into a flat, as in flatten it up. Okay, so there are different objects to unwrap here.
Really nice passing.
Usually you just click on this unwrap. Since you've marked the scene, then you can just click on this unwrap. And then you see maxing is also without edge to be a seam. You don't want it to be a seam. Then you select, you press U, you have that edge selected, and you clear seam. Okay, and you clear seam. I don't want to do that, so that's why I'm not clicking. All right. So now, how do you know that you have the subject tab here? Come to UV editor. Now you can come into this UV editor. This is the default layout in Blender, or when you close it up, or you can actually just
You can
let me
see
open
how
this up,
Fulham have set up.
or you can
They've
come
set
here,
up
click
to
this drop down. Remember, I told you that you
how
can
play
change different
in
windows
between the
from
lines. So
this drop down here. It's actually on every window, different type of windows. So even here too, there's this drop down that changes the different type of window. Okay, so even this one, this drop down, it's usually at the top right corner. So now top left rather. So you click this window and go to UV editor. Okay, that's what we're looking for. UV editor. Now it will seem as if there's nothing. It's plain at first. But if you bring your arrow back into your viewport and then you press A to select everything. Okay. Now it has unwrapped your object. Now this is how your object looks like in 2D if it is unwrapped. Now what we have just done is we took a 3D object, we cut it in marked as and we opened it up into a 3D object. Okay. So this is what it does. Now to make that now Blender has understood how the object is. So if you take any 2D image and slap it on top now, you'll now be able to specify, okay, this part of this place is where you want this part to be, this part is where you want that part to be. And that's just the general rule of unwrapping, and it's very important in Blender because it will blend. If you just slap the object to it, like the way we applied, you notice that to that cylinder, you notice that it's not even showing up on the cylinder. The it's just looking weird on the cylinder because that's because Blender doesn't understand how the object is supposed to map to the cylinder. All right, so good. So let me just delete this. This just the cube is just for reference. Now, what if we have something like a cylinder? Okay, a slightly more complex object. So remember that. Let me open up. What we're trying to add is this label. We're trying to add label to the middle part. Okay. So how do we unwrap this? We want to unwrap it in such a way that the middle part is going to be the middle part is basically like a cylinder now. But we want to open it up to you notice that if you have a flat object, if you want to convert a cylinder to a flat object, you just like slit one part and then you open it up. Okay. Can we see me? Like hello? Are you still following?
No.
Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? Because it seems it's very quiet. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys are following me. All right, good. Okay, so basically that's just how we unwrap in Blender. So you just take this and you open it up, unwrap the object. Okay. So now. So now, like I said, let's unwrap this label part now. So we'll be able to texture it. So we'll be able to add that T to it, add this label to it. Okay. So now, first of all, we'll select the entire ring. Okay. We'll select the entire ring. All right. We might let me go into A. Select mode to select this. I want to add this into. You notice that if you want to open this up, what you do is you cut one a vertical to it, and then you will select all the edges. This will be this. Are going to be the same. Okay, and then we'll press U, and then you mark same. All right. Notice that as I did that, the edges that we selected became red. Okay? Even when you select them, they will still be red. Okay. So what we do next, we select all the faces that are associated to that, or you can just come to this place here, this label mode and label, and then you select this. Okay. Now when you have everything selected, you press U to bring up the unwrapping options, and then you click on unwrap. Okay. Now when you click on unwrap, if you immediately go into your material view, okay, maybe go into material view, you notice that our object is label is now placed on the object on the bottle. Okay, so that's just the very that's just the standard way to add like a label or any material, any picture image to another image.
I'm sorry, please can you come again?
Sorry,
I'm sorry, please can you redo it? Like what you just did now.
all right, you mean from the beginning, right? From the beginning, or just the
Just from when you start to unwrap it. Mine is not showing up.
Okay, all right, good. So what I said was, if you want to unwrap an object, like if you want to add, take a picture image, maybe you want your face to be on the water bottle, or you want to slap anything to it. I told that the it's just like the way you would do it in real life, like in real life. You take a picture or a 2D surface, and then you slap it on on the image. Okay, and that's exactly how Blender 2 will understand. But you have to do a little bit more defining in Blender, so that Blender will understand how this object will map it, how the 2D image will map in onto a 3D surface. So you have to define some things, okay? You have to define to Blender that this is an edge, this is these are the faces, this is the part that I want this to map to, these are the part that this, that. You have to define specifics to Blender, okay? You understand that?
Yes.
Okay, and to do that, what we'll do is we unwrap it. First of all, before we just take the 2D surface to slap on this, we are going to first take the 3D and turn it into 2D, and then it will be as if we now take the 2. Since this is a 3D now and it has been turned to 2D, we now take the original 2D image and line it up to this. And then since we've lined, it will now match up to this. Blender already understand that this is a 3D object, and we have taken a 2D object and lined it up to a 3D object. So it has understand how to map this the object to the surface. Okay, so the object can now be reflected on our 3D object. That's just the basic of how, the principle of how it works. All right, do you understand to that point?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. So, and what I was explaining is how to actually turn the 3D into a 2D. How to actually open up a 3D so that Blender understands it in 2D also. Understanding 2D in 3D also. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. All right. So to do that, what we simply did was we came into edit mode. Still in edit mode, we now selected all the edges. Like you have to just picture it this object in front of you, like in front of you. Okay, if you wanted to add a label to an object, like to a water bottle or to anything, for example, let me use this for example. Godwin, are you listening? I believe, or who is asking the question? Hello. Give me a sec. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Who was asking? Who was asking the question? Godwin, was that not you?
No, not me, but I'm with you, sir.
Okay, no, I'm looking for the person that was asking the question specifically. Absalam, were you the one that was asking the question?
It was me.
Okay. All right. So, if you look at this object now, you can see this object, right? If you are working in the company that was manufacturing this, and you wanted to add the label to it to this object, how will you add the label? All right. How will you add the label? Usually, you have the label, of course, the actual flat printed label. Then you apply some glue, probably some form of glue on the back of the label, and then you slap the label on the object, right? Do you understand that? Hello.
Yes, that is how we do it.
Okay, yeah. Absalam, specifically, do you understand that? You're the one that asked the question.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite get that. I was having network difficulties, so I kept on disconnecting.
Okay, I was saying that if you worked at a company that was manufacturing this this Vaseline, for example, okay, and you wanted to add a label to the Vaseline, maybe that contains your name. You know what a label is now? That contains your name, your company name, your everything, whatever. If you wanted to add a label to it, how will you do it? Literally, like I'm talking of in real life now. How will you do it? You likely have the label first, then you apply some glue to the label, and then you slap the label onto the surface of the object of the Vaseline, right? Is that not how you do it? Response. Absalam. We're running out of time, so we need to go fast.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's how you do it, right? Now, in Blender now, to do that, the process is actually very similar. You take a 2D object, a label, like a 2D object, and you slap it to a 2D object. But in Blender, you can't just do that directly, okay? What you first need to do is you need to tell Blender, you need to help Blender understand that this is a 3D object, and this 3D object, you open it up. It's like the 3D object was like this. The 3D object was this already, but you have to, in Blender, you have to first open up the 3D object into a 2D surface. Okay, then you now take the label. Then now, since the 3D object has been opened up into a 2D surface, then you take the label, which is already a 2D surface. Then now match them together. When you match them together, then Blender understands how this 3D object became a 2D surface, so it will easily understand how to wrap it back into the 2D surface, and that will reflect in the object. That's how it works in Blender. Okay, do you understand that theory? Absalam, okay, Absalam has gone off again. But for the rest of us, do we understand that theory?
Yes. I understand.
Okay, good. So what we are now going to do is, we now did was we have to define to Blender, whenever we're turning a 3D object as unwrapping the face, we have to define for Blender which parts are going to be the edges, which part. Just imagine, look at the object. You have to picture it in your head. Which is going, if you wanted to open this object up into a 2D surface, which part will you want the edge to be, which part will you want the size to be, which part with the dimensions, basically. So you have to imagine you are cutting it with your hands or something. So those edges, those are the ones you selected, okay? And that's why I said you go to edge select mode and you select all the edges, okay, that you want to cut as in the cut to be. So whenever you're cutting the edge, the edges are called seams. Like if you know about tailoring or sewing, when you're sewing clothes, tailoring, whenever what they call seam is the part of two clothes. Let's say two parts that they are joining together. Those parts is the same. The joint part is the same, okay, as where they stitch the two clothes together. So just like in Blender too. So the parts that you cut, like that is going to be the edge basically of the unwrapping, the edge of the unwrapping part. Those edges are going to call the same, okay. So what you do is you select all the edges that you want to be the same, okay, and then you press U to bring up the unwrapping option, and then you click mark seam. So you mark those edges as same, okay. So to define to Blender that these edges, I want these edges to be the same of the unwrapping of this 3D object when you open it up into 3D, okay, into 2D. When you open 2D into 3D, do you get that now? Hello? Please, responses. It's important. We're already out of time and we've not even done up to half of what we need to do today. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good. Okay, so do you understand how I got this label? Please bear in mind, this is not the original label, of course, obviously. I just picked the random picture of my image on my system and I slapped it on this on the surface, okay. So if you wanted to make the actual label, you need to have the picture of the actual label. Let me maybe you can just Google it. Swan bottle label. You probably will get something. I don't know, it depends. You can, if you find it. Okay. So bottom line, you need to have the label, the 2D label, and then you now take that image and then you slap it on the 3D object. Okay, but if you don't have it, don't work yourself out. You're not slapping any image. You're just for reference. The idea is to know how to do it, not not to, if you don't get the correct one, don't worry. Okay. So now what we have just done is we've assigned for the bottle, we've assigned the cap. The cap is, we have specified that this cap is going to be plastic, and we created that in the shading. Okay, let me go into shading so you can see better. So you can see all the nodes, the node editor. Okay. So now we've done the cap, and for the bottle, we also applied the bottle too. We applied the transparent effect to the bottle. Okay. So, and then for the label, we also did the same for the label. All right. So we've gotten the three. Let's just assume that this C stuff is going to be the label for the it's going to be our label for the Swan bottle. Editing, and you can just edit that. Okay. So you select all the objects, all the, I'm going to write all the label parts of label, and notice it's brought out the 2D shape here, and this is exactly what I was explaining with the labeling. So it took a 3D object. Okay, imagine this was the cylinder, right? And we explained to Blender that we want to cut this cylinder and open it up into, sorry, so you can see properly. This is a cylinder, right? We want to cut this blender, open it up into a flat surface. Okay, so we select the faces and we'll mark them and we'll unwrap, and Blender will understand how that we want to open this up into a 2D surface. And what we did, and how that when we opened up, that's what just happened here. Okay, notice that there are edges. I can select everything the same way I would select things in here. So basically, I just what I did was I selected, I have all these edges and stuff exactly here, the same thing here. So once this is opened up in Blender, once you explain to Blender how to open this up, you now take the 2D flat image, okay, and then you match two of them together. All right, and matching two of them together is what happens in this page. Okay, this page that has the 2D faces. So if I should select everything now and move it off the page, you see, and watch your hand. Okay, good. So that's exactly if you when you match everything up to the proper way, it's you have what exactly what. So if it's a bit stretched out for you, you can actually just scale this on. But keep in mind, if you are in a 2D, since we are in 2D, this place cannot express itself in 3D. We've opened it up in 2D. So if you want to stretch out your cardinal points are kind of different now. This is just going to express like exactly the way it is in a graph sheet, since it's a 2D surface, since it's a 2D work environment. But please bear in mind, this one is a 3-dimensional work environment, but this is a 2D work environment. So no matter how you move it, it only is flat. Okay. This on the vertical. I'll be scaling it on Y. So you can see how that is scaling is increasing on Y now. But if I want to scale it on the horizontal axis, I'll press S to scale and then X on the horizontal axis because it's 2D surface. Okay. I notice that as I'm tweaking this, the more I tweak this, the more this object kind of the stretching kind of changes. Okay. So now one thing I want to have in mind is, even though this object is there's only one image here, the Blender, the more if you open it up that doesn't line up with the image, it's kind of like tiling the image. So so that T stuff in Blender, what Blender understands is the T stuff is kind of repeating the other like a tile, exactly like a tile. So like a grid tile, so it's increases infinitely. So that's why if you notice the T stuff, if you come here, if you rotate this, it's as if another T image has appeared, another one has appeared, and that's because Blender is it's understanding the thing as a tile. All right, and see how that changes. Okay, so now in case your object is your image is upside down, like as this one is right now, it's actually upside down, you can actually still rotate it. You can rotate it 180 degrees so that it to be upright. All right, so rotate 180 degrees so to be upright. Okay, so now I have it positive T. I just scale it on X a bit. All right. So there's no really no big deal to it. So do you understand this right now? Do you understand how I got to this point? Hello.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right. Good. Is Absalam back? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Absalam, do you understand how I got to this point?
No, I've been disconnected. I've been having network
Okay. Yeah.
issues.
You were connected for a while. Um. We're running out of time. I will still. Our class is actually supposed to end in by 6 o'clock. So I will still kind of touch on this in the next class very briefly, but I really want you to go over the class today to understand this. And sorry, I've not actually been releasing the PDFs that I said I would. I've been really busy, and I'll try and put some PDFs together and send to you so you can actually still go over those materials to have better understanding. Okay. And then also, even outside of the class times, you can message me. I know a few people have messaged me about some problems they have in their work, and I was able to put them through, or we're able to do it together. Okay, so if you are even outside of the class, if you still don't understand some things, you can actually talk to me or send me a private message, and I'll definitely put you through. Okay. So, but this is the basics of how we create material in Blender, every material. So this is the basics. You unwrap, or if the material is not a single color like that, if it's a complex, let me say complex color like a map that has different maybe writings and pictures and everything, you can do that. But if it's a single color like a plain color like that, you can just add the default material to the you can just add the color here. Okay, so that's just the basics. Okay. So today I'll be wrapping up the class now because we've done most of the things. So what I want you to do is the water bottle you created in your own personal assignment in the first assignment. I want you to texture it just the way I textured this. That's your assignment for today. You have to texture it the way I textured this. Add the bottle cap, the bottle, the texture, the materials, and remember that you
Right.
for the bottle itself, you might want to make the thickness a little bit um give it a little bit of thickness, okay, in the solidified modifier, not too much, okay, just a little bit. And okay, exactly. So that just basically, so you add some thickness to it, add the material, the label, the body, and then the cap. Now another thing that I want you to do, you might not know why, but whenever you're in your assignment, also be something the same way you've been something the previous ones. That's the wireframe, solid material, and rendered. Okay. So what I want you to do now is I want you to come here to this panel here. Okay. Now you see this panel, the one that says render properties. Okay, the icon that says render properties. It appears anyway, so it doesn't matter. So just come here, the one that says render properties. Okay, click on it, and then you see this one that says render engine. All right, you select it and make sure you click on cycles. Okay, it's important. So make sure you click on cycles. Okay, when you click on cycles, then you can now make it. So if you come to rendered view now, okay, you click on rendered view, and then don't worry, your background will definitely not look like mine by default. We'll be talking. I don't want to talk much on how to add some background lightings now, because it's a more advanced class, basically. But just leave it by default. It might, if your background is black or dark, all you have to do is, let me do this. If by default your background is kind of dark or something like that, so just come to, sorry, when you're in object mode, when you're in object mode, or when you're in the 3D viewport, just come to this panel here, all right, and click on this world property. Look for, just hover your mouse over all these options. The one that says world properties. Please take note of all this. It's very important. The one that says world properties, click on it. Now go into the color, the one that says the color, and click on the color. You want to increase the color the more you increase this color, the more your scene brightens up. All right. So that's what I want you to do. All right. Or I mean, because at wall lighting is another topic on this one that we need to treat. So just ignore this. Don't do that. What I would want you to do is add in a light. All right. Hello. Am I confusing you guys? Sorry. I'm trying to look for the easiest way for you. Okay. So what I want you to do is just click Shift A in your 3D viewport. Shift A in your 3D viewport and add in a light. Okay. Bring up the add option, then you go to light. All right. Now go into this point light. Okay. You select the point light. Okay. Now you grab G to grab the point light up. This is the point light. All right. This is how it's looking. You don't have this, then you have a problem. Okay. So grab the point light up and just leave it somewhere close to, anywhere close to your original object. Close to your original object. So when you go into the wireframe to actually interact with the object, okay? Do you understand me?
Smell it.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you understand? Hello, Shio.
Yeah.
Stefan. Godwin and
Yes.
Salam Barak.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, can hear you, but can you go back to adding the lights?
Okay. Let me go back to adding the light. Okay. So, let me go into solid view. What I did was, the same way you add a cube. If you wanted to add a cube or something, or a cylinder or whatever to your scene, you press Shift A to add, right? Okay. But in this case, you will not be adding a mesh, because if you wanted to add a cube, you come to mesh, you select the cube, or you select cylinder, torus, whatever. Okay. What you'll be adding now, make sure you're in object mode, please. It's very important. What you'll be adding, if you press Shift A now, you come down, you scroll down to lights. Okay. This is lights. Okay. And then you come to area lights. Okay. Sorry, you come here to point light. Sorry, I'm sorry, point light. Do you understand that? Oh, you know what?
Yes.
So we don't have any headache. Just add in the sunlight. Usually, actually, all the lights somewhat behave the same way. They, like the name implies, they are lights. They light up your scene. So I don't want to talk too much on lights today, because it's another topic entirely on its own. There's an even advanced area of lighting that is very much complex. So I won't really talk about that today. But adding light, just click on lights and then add a sun. So what you'll be adding is a sun. I'll put all this in the documentation for the assignment. Okay. So add in a sun. All right. So when you add a sun will not. It doesn't matter where the sun is or the angle, it will actually be able. It will actually appear the same way. Done. All right. Please notice where my mouse is. Okay, so this sampling, the number will keep increasing up until, like, it's showing 11 out of 1024 now. So whenever it shows done, that's when you screenshot. Don't screenshot before then. Whenever it shows done, just screenshot. That's how you send the rendered view of in your assignment. In the assignment, you've been sending wireframe view, solid view, screenshot of all these views. So that's how you send the rendered view. Okay. And please don't forget that you have to change the render engine from it will likely be default will likely be Eevee, something like this, or change it from drop down and change it to cycles. Okay, so you wait for this. If you're in Eevee, you won't even have this number at all. So that's just all. That's just basically it. So create this on your water bottle and change to cycles, and then screenshot like screenshot wireframe, screenshot solid view, and screenshot materials view, and then screenshot rendered view. Okay. Do you have any question about the assignment? I want to answer the question now.
Hello?
This
will be assignment 5, yes.
Do you have any question about? Sorry.
I'm saying this will be assignment 5. The fourth assignment should be the gun barrel stuff. I'm trying to ask about submission because like I was saying at the beginning of the class, the link wasn't allowing me to upload. Then this new link I also opened it and it's having the same issue.
Okay, I don't know what happened to the link, but I think a new link has been generated, right, Maserichi, and it has been shared, I believe.
Yeah, I tried beginning of the class when I asked to send the new link, but it's still the same issue.
What's your challenge like with the link?
Okay, let me
share your screen.
If I try to upload anything. Okay, cool.
Can you share your screen? Okay, let me stop sharing my screen so you can. Waiting for you.
Yeah, I'm coming. 1 moment.
Okay, can see your screen.
Yes, let's just say this one. And this is the link. If I try to drag it, I don't know if you can see, you don't have permission to upload to this folder.
The folder is actually has been made open for everybody. Like access is open. So you try to create a folder for yourself there.
Now try to upload.
See, I tried to say everything is grayed out because I don't have permission to edit weekend folder.
Okay, everybody wants to be editors, right?
Yeah, I think everybody has to be an editor to upload.
Yeah, everybody actually has to be an editor to modify anything in the folder. So it's not just about being able to view.
Currently, the folder the access is open to everyone. I'm sure everybody can upload, but let me confirm it from my end.
Okay.
Sean, have you try uploading right now? Just now, since you refreshed now. Okay, still the same.
Because I know earlier on some persons requested for access, and then I changed the setting to open to everybody that has access to the link.
When you send the link, you actually asked me for access to resend a request, and I sent a request.
Hello? Okay.
Assignment 3. So I even just sent it as an email when it wasn't working. I just sent as an email to one of the emails. But I'm saying moving forward, since everybody already has access to this folder, where is the folder?
Have you been successful?
Assignment 1 folder.
Sorry, you know what? I will also share an email with you guys. So in case for any in subsequent classes or subsequently, if you have any issues with the link or something like that, you'll be able to send directly to that email. Okay.